Hi, it's Hazel. Welcome to my channel. I cannot believe that it is day 44 in the 100-day project. It, you know, closing in on the halfway mark. So it's truly kind of unbelievable. Today, what I'm going to do is work on some tiny little dangles slash clusters slash, I don't know. In the past, I've shown you some of the incredible calendars that I have scored. And as you know, most calendars have sort of that either on the back cover or the inside back cover usually have kind of, year at a glance kind of thing and tiny little thumbnail images off, what is pictured month by month. This particular calendar that I cut these from all sort of had a rural or farm theme. And the ones that have these lines at the back, I just left alone. The ones that had, an indication it was an actual, I guess something other than the stripes, I covered. Now I chose the ones that basically had inanimate objects, more landscapey than human. So I did some pre-selection before turning on the camera just because that saves time and brain power to do it that way. Given that these images are rural and include things like abandoned buildings, rusty things, decrepit equipment, that sort of thing. The things I've assembled by and large fit with that. Like originally, I have a little, where is it? A thing like this with some sequins and leaves and whatnot. But they're all far too sparkly and whatever to make sense, at least in my opinion, with the imagery that I'm using. So I've got tea-dye type things. I've got, a selection of burlappy type things, and I'm just going to get to it. So maybe I'll just sort of clear the decks here a bit. And maybe I'll start with this one. This image is one of the few that has, some real sort of high contrast with that dark black burning barrel. So I found this scrap of paper. I cut a piece of burlap and I could remove a thread or two to make it a little more, rustic looking. I gathered some die cuts. So this is a little ticket thing. Now that's perforated there, but I'm not going to use that to, I'll let that part hang down below because it'll be safer there. So basically what I was thinking is that this is kind of a cool combination. Even this white bit here picks up on the snow. So all of these little images, by nature of it being a calendar, are landscape in format. So my intention was to punch a hole. And I've got this tiny little punch. I have one size up, which is that one. Basically, what I think I'm going to do, though, is do some gluing. Actually, maybe I should. And I said dangles, I said snippets. I guess initially I was thinking dangles, but there's nothing to say that this couldn't just be, like a little mini cluster type thing that gets glued down to a page. And that I would leave that length as it is. I also have my corner rounder here because I'm thinking that sometimes I just may want Oh, is there enough to grasp onto here? You know, some of these corners are maybe a bit sharp for my liking. Now this piece of paper is so tiny that I almost can't hang on to it and get it in there, but it worked. So I think what I'll do, let me find some glue paper. Is attach these things. Now, at any point, I guess I could also, maybe I'll use this for the burlap part. I could also, of course, sew down these later. I'm going to just, you know, kind of offset that a bit, maybe add a little more interest to it. Maybe put that at a bit of an angle, and that way, you know, it's just not a whole bunch of elements all piled up on each other and, you know, obscuring the things beneath it. Also out of your line of vision are some silk flowers, some eyelets, some bulb pins, bits of fabric, postage stamps, and so on. And of course, there's not going to be time to, or probably occasion to use all of those things, but I did want to have them nearby. So I think in this case, I'm not going to bother punching a hole. I'm not going to turn it into a dangle, as it were. I'm just going to do that. I think that looks pretty darn nice. You may see that some of these, whoa, that's a lot of glue, that some of these items have appeared in recent videos, and that's because, you know, obviously they're still on my desk and I still want to deal with them. So let's call that one done. Now this one, oh, I also gathered together die cuts, or maybe I said that already. So here's a die cut ticket. This is another one that is sort of, you know, punched at both ends. Now I looked through my chipboard and these sorts of things. This is, to me, well, of course that's peeling paint, so you'd think it would fit right in, but it really doesn't. So, you know, short of painting it some other color, I think I'm going to leave that one aside. Abandoned house, very common in, you know, in rural parts of, well, certainly Alberta. I don't know about anywhere else, really. Now, I could, if I wanted to, one thing I didn't bring here was like embroidery thread or something like that. Now, mind you, this is probably, I think this is too thick. Probably is. I could, whoops. Oh, and these, I picked out a couple of different wooden buttons that this might work. This is just some fiber that is coming off this burlap. Let me just cut a hunk of that off and see what happens. The other day, I think it was yesterday, I started going through some of my ribbon storage. Oh, is that an eye-opener? See, I think with this one, what I'll do, a lot of these images have really sort of, and I don't mean that in a critical way, but sort of washed out skies. And of course, you know, a fair bit of snow in them as well. So that makes for some pretty light backgrounds. And then you add in the autumn colors and the dried grasses and all that in it. I don't know if you can see, but there's just a tiny little, almost impossible to see little black line. And I kind of want that gone. Anyway, I was saying I started going through my ribbon, and oh my goodness, is that a job and a half. And you know, there are so many ways to sort of display it. Maybe for this I'll use art glitter glue. You know, it could be by color, it could be by type, it could be by width. One thing I do know is that I wanted to pull all the burlap type stuff together, just because, you know, it's very specific, the sorts of projects that would be used in. Now I have this that could become, should I try doubling this and see what happens? Usually that's an exercise in frustration, trying to make all the loops behave the way they're supposed to. So of course, oh, did you see what happened? That just tore. Okay. Do you see what just happened? The problem disappeared. So perhaps what I would do there, it's going to happen again because that's only paper. So let me, boy, I don't have too much left there. Let me just quickly use my, what do you call this thing? Drop it out. Punch a hole. Set an eyelet. You know, ever since I really figured out how to do this, I am just a eyelet setting machine. Or maybe maniac is a better word. Okay, where's my building? Okay, so that means this can now be used. Let me line this up again. Oh, cover this. So when something really skinny and not that, you know, impactful on its own, I'm not going to cut that in half and then have a second piece to worry about. I'm just going to double it up and, you know, kind of double the impact, deal with the piece once and for all, and not have to think about it again. Now that, because it was doubled up, I'm going to cut this. And now I've got 4 tails up there. Maybe I'll just trim that a little more evenly. Let's add this. Let's add this. And we'll call another one done. Now, originally when I thought about this project, I was thinking, oh, it would be, you know, little dangles. So in case they turn, as they're wont to do, it would be good if the back looked finished. That's why I either went with the lined background or backed it so that if it did spin around, because, you know, bulb pins have a lot of appeal, and they're handy and all that, but boy, oh boy, can they be frustrating in terms of making them stay the way you want them to. So maybe that's why this project of mine is morphing into something other than what I originally planned. Okay, let's get rid of this because we're not using it this time. Now this one, again, I looked through my chipboard, and I believe I have half and half these and sort of like a denim blue type color. So I think that I was the one that actually painted them that color. I think they would have been natural. I'm not sure why I did that, but hey, it is what it is. I thought this button looked really cool. Now, this is getting to be fairly big. Like this ampersand is, you know, basically 2.5 inches wide and 3 inches tall. But again, a lot of times the page, you know, can carry that much. So I wonder, this is probably a bit too light. Or maybe I should try some of this. This could be part of like a sling, you know, first aid type sling. So let's just see how that would look. You know, it would add it would add another level. I also have this color. Maybe that's closer to what that road looks like. So let's use a little hunk of this. And this looks like it's going to be nice and sort of ratty looking. Now maybe what I should do on this one is put an eyelet in it right off the bat. And then, you know, I doubt that a bulb pin will be the answer here because it's, whoops, step 2. Maybe another brown one. You know, adding all these other layers. Maybe let's rough this up a bit. You know, and if a bulb pin is kind of not adequate, person could also use a safety pin or something like that to attach it. This almost feels a bit big, although I suppose I could add it at the back as well. I want to round these corners. These sorts of grain elevators have pretty well disappeared from the landscape. Some were demolished just because, you know, the insurance premiums are too much for any, like the original grain companies that owned them obviously want to cut their losses. Sometimes historical societies acquire them as historic sites, but, you know, really it's almost impossible for a community to find the money to keep these things insured. Of course, they were all wood construction. So if fire were to start, you know, it is a loss. And some of them, of course, have, you know, burnt to the ground in the past. So yeah, I think, you know, there might, in the province, I think there might be one or two kind of that were preserved as interpretive centers. But, you know, the days of having 5 or 6 or 7 or so in a community, even a small village, are pretty well gone. Okay, I think I'm just going to glue that down because, again, it's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. I could even, I don't know, can you see that? I'm deliberately putting a few folds into that. And I suppose, mind you, I haven't touched this. Oh, I can't get at my ink right now. I don't know if there's any juice left in this dry. Oh yeah, in this brush to try to. I really should keep an ink pad a little more accessible. I guess what I could do here too, maybe rather than gluing the button down, or maybe I'll just do it like that. I was going to say I could dangle it, excuse me, from that eyelet, but that doesn't seem like. That is probably more trouble than it's worth for the effect. These sorts of grain elevators, even if they still existed, would not accommodate the current trucks, you know, B trains and semi trucks that haul grain now that most farmers use. So yeah, they were sort of the single axle or tandem truck size back in the day, and originally would have even probably, well, I wonder. Yeah, they must have accommodated horses in the beginning. Anyway, I'm glad I'm using some of these buttons because they're really pretty darn attractive. And if you can find one that sort of goes with the thing you're doing, I'll just leave that. I should probably, what can I put on there for some weight? Now this one is a similar thing. How about T for tractor? This tractor, unless I'm totally mistaken, but based on those colors, is a Minneapolis Moline. And we have one of those in our yard, circa 1950, can't remember if it's 53 or 55. And as you can see in this photo, it's an open tractor and really quite a hazard. Back in the day, that would have been a farmer's, you know, main machine. But, oh, what did I pre-select for this one? I wonder. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I just had that. Let me put this aside for the time being. Anyway, Minneapolis U, I guess U was the sort of the model number. And real hardworking tractors. Again, basically now, if there are any out there, they're kind of just, you know, little runaround tractors in the yard. But I'll put that one aside for the time being because I do have a few others here that I am certain about. So this one, this polka dotted, it was actually like a bandana or something. It was one of those, you know, some company had imprinted their name on it, and it was kind of some swag at a conference. And this is a little old truck that is covered with snow. I think I'm just going to take a hair down because, again, that little black line is showing. That is a die cut of a postage stamp. I'm going to glue this little picture to that die, or die cut, I mean. And then use this as my other main element. So I think this should work fine on this. That blue, I can see because of this design here, which will now be covered up, was actually the cover, like from a, not a duotang, but sort of a report cover. So there's just going to be that tiny, teeny tiny little border showing. And, whoa, that slipped. And the other thing I was thinking is, how about using one of these liquor tickets? If this is your main machine, you probably do need a good stiff drink. You know, so maybe this is one of those cases where I need to just punch some holes in the corner and see what threading this onto a bulb pin will look like. Don't have time to look for a black one, so I'll just use this sort of bronzy color. Half the time I don't know. Oh, see, I should have done a different corner. These things are going to cover one another. Darn it. Okay, let me do a different corner. Now there'll be a little more separation. How do I want to? Maybe I'll sort of pleat this a bit and see if that looks okay. I'm just attempting to poke this through sort of that little pleat that I made. You can see that, you know, even if you haven't pre-assembled some stuff like I have, these things, you know, go together reasonably quickly. I think that's kind of cute, to be honest. Now, the only thing that I would maybe do a little bit differently here is raggedy up the bottom a bit. So maybe let's try tearing that off a little more. Jaggedy. Fray it a bit. I don't know if you can really tell that I pleated that. It didn't. But I think that's pretty cute. And I mean, could it get simpler than that? Not really. Okay. What did I have in mind here? Oh, this one. There's a little bit of color in this one because of the Coca-Cola sign. So I thought it kind of that any of these elements read pretty well on there. So this is some drawer lining. You may have seen me using this or holding it up the other day. I will probably just tear this to uneven to, you know, get a more, a less regular edge. This was drawer paper, drawer liner, that I had stamped. I'm just trying to, trying to mutilate this thing. So I've got that. I've got a cardstock other ticket. I've got this, and I've got one of these. So again, I always consider the mini painting kind of my focal point. So probably what I would do here is maybe glue these on, sort of almost like the first few that I did, kind of more like a cluster, not so much a dangle. But again, you know, it's all semantics. A person could certainly turn a dangle into a cluster and a cluster into a dangle very easily just by adding or removing the hanging mechanism. You know, sometimes having to deal with just the landscape orientation, you know, sometimes I think, well, portrait might have been a bit easier, but it is what it is, and these are too cute not to use. And I know that I have another bunch from a different calendar somewhere, but of course, you think I could find them when I wanted to? No siree. So I hope that if you have all sorts of little odds and ends on your desk, that you choose to, you know, put them together. See what kind of cuteness you can make with the pieces that you have. You know, probably not going to be at all what I'm using, but hey, I do have, you know, some agriculture, some farming, some prairie type journals, plans, so none of this work is ever wasted. I wish I'd have put that. Can I still move this? Yes, I can. That's cute. I should probably use art glitter glue for this one. And of course, the beauty of calendars is that, I mean, I'm just using these little thumbnails here, but obviously I still have all the full-size images, and there is virtually a calendar for every subject matter under the sun. So, you know, if you want one on flowers, there are flowers. If you want butterflies, there are butterflies. If you want, you know, poodles, there are poodles. So you name it, you've got it. Maybe I will punch this thing. And maybe I'm having a little better luck with the bulb pin. Well, number one, it could be two things. It could be because I haven't tried to attach it to anything. And it could also be that with this tiny little hole, there is less option for it to get, you know, screwy. Screwy, that's an official word and condition. Here's a little die cut tag. Here is one of the few images that has a bit of like green grass, as opposed to, you know, dead grass in fall. Maybe I will leave, no, I like the rounded better. And the other thing that I was thinking for this one is that a long time ago, I don't know, do you remember when these sorts of what were magnetic poetry or whatever they called, you know, little magnets. You were supposed to, I guess, be very clever and creative and come up with something brilliant for your fridge or whatever. This particular kit I got a long time ago, but it was for some writing I was doing for students, an online students union publication. So a lot of the words, when I was sifting through them a while ago, were student related. So frustration, demanding, study, you know, a lot of those obviously do not apply. Although frustrating and demanding certainly could apply to agriculture. Yeah, this is probably one of those where I might want to see if I glue that and that together. See, independence is too long, but that definitely is one of the words that apply to farming. Maybe I'll just go with rewarding, and I think I will also cut it down a hair, just so it's kind of doesn't cover up as much of the oh, that was crooked. Maybe a little shaveruno here. Okay. I'm going to use glue stick on everything but the magnet. And if I wanted to turn it into a dangle, I could use that little hole that, that little hole that is in the tag. That is cute. I don't know, are some of these things just, are they so satisfying? And so appealing just because they're cute and tiny. Like, would this be quite as attractive if it was 6 inches tall? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, I said art glitter glue. How are we doing for time? Not too bad. I think I have one more prepped. Hopefully this will give me enough enough contact to really hold this. I don't usually like things all askew, but hey. And if I choose, how about on this one if we use some twine? Whoa. Just for something a bit different. This twine, let me rip some of this off. This twine came out of a free box. I would be, if any of you out there have a brilliant system for storing your, I'm going to put a dab of glue, for storing your ribbon, I'd be interested to hear it. It is a challenge. I was complaining the other day about, you know, how manufacturers use those oversized spools to make it look like you're getting so much for your money. If they did it in proportion to the actual yardage on a thing, it would be, the spools would be a lot smaller and it would be a lot easier. Well, it would be more environmentally sensible and a lot easier to store. So I don't know. And taking it off, like if it's really, if it's those almost 3-inch spools and they've got 3 yards of material on them, sometimes I just take them off and, you know, put them on a card. But that's a time-consuming process also, and I flirt with the idea of using pins to hold them on. No, first of all, I scotch tape one end down, and then to keep it on there, either a pin, like a straight pin, or another piece of scotch tape. But, you know, neither of those things is exactly foolproof either. Okay, this is my last one. Although I do have more to do, but I'm just not, I don't think I'm ready. Okay, so this was a die. I really like it, but of course it didn't turn out that well. I think partly operator error, me. So I'm going to, well, first of all, this is a piece of lining out of my husband's, one of his early leather jackets. So to me, these colors are an absolutely perfect match. So I'm thinking what I'll do, or maybe I'll put this behind. I'm going to cut off the part that I don't want. Or do I want it longer? Make it a bigger deal. See, I do have one as big as that, but oh, this is the darker side. I don't think I want it that big because, well, and it looks goofy with what I've done here, so I think I'm going to how do I do this so it doesn't look stupid? Maybe this is some sleight of hand, people. I'm cutting this off, and I'm cutting that off. And I'm going to piece this together in such a way that the viewer will not know that I've done that. This will cover. Okay, let me glue these two pieces together first, then I'll see what I have to work with. This should go here so that I actually have a surface to glue. And I'm deliberately, you know, putting it askew so that I can make a bigger thing. Maybe I'll leave these corners as they are, just because I'm just going to trim off the little black bit. You know what? I don't even have to do that. There's a black or a dark line in the fabric. So let's see what happens. If I do it like so, obviously that has to cover that little mess there. Okay, what I should probably do is resize this lining thing before I glue anything down. So hopefully it will rip. Did you see how I just recklessly threw that in the garbage instead of trying to save it? To glue. Okay, let me glue this on so I can cover up that area. And then I'll do the positioning when I'm not trying to keep all these moving parts. Okay, so basically like so. Okay, now is that fabric a little too big? And I don't think I want to add any lighter element because I kind of like it the way it is. Maybe that's a bit much. How about another piece of this stuff here? Or is this better? This is probably going to, this messier thing is probably going to be better. Whoops, maybe a bit smaller than I intended. Oops. I think that's good. It picks up the little light line in the lining. Kind of disguises this missing corner here. I hope you cannot hear the tractor idling out there. I'm just grateful that I'm upwind of the exhaust. Nothing makes me annoyed like diesel fumes. Annoyed and kind of sick headache. And let's put this on here. Oops. Okay, and I'm not gluing down every speck of that fabric because I want there to be some dimension and some movement to it. You know, obviously it will ultimately, you know, get glued down to a page, so. Do I want it like that? Yeah, I think so. So, as always, I thank you for stopping by, for watching, for liking, commenting. I have to say, some of you just make my day with those comments. I especially like when you get my sense of humor and you know, and sort of say as much, because my goodness, there are enough reasons to moan and cry and whatever when you see what's going on in the world. But if we can find a bit of time each day for crafting, for laughing, for having the awareness, self-awareness, and humility to laugh at ourselves, well, I think that day is a winner automatically. So anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but I do appreciate those of you who are sticking with me and supporting the channel and all that jazz. So let us see what we managed to get done in a relatively short time. And if these are not the cutest things. Okay, this was kind of who knows what. Do I just want to add that? Why don't I just poke a hole, add an eyelet? I could add one of these threads. Oops, that's probably not long enough. One of these burlap fibers. See, you thought I was done. I'm going to glue down that little bit of gauzy, whoops, wrong end. That little bit of gauzy stuff. Like it offset, like so. Maybe just a smidge here to control where that goes. Did I even get anything on there? Don't think so. Okay. Now, if I wanted to put an eyelet there, let me poke a little hole, yeah, in this corner. Thread. I've got all kinds of stuff sticking to me here. Thread this thing through. Come on, baby. Or for that matter, I could just let it dangle and just glue that down. Let it dangle like so. Maybe put another button. I know I have other, this one is rather big. But it's got the orange. This one could work too. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, why don't I, then I'm going to find that this little string is too short. Thread that. Whoops, it wants to separate. and this through. Aren't you glad I dumped that there? Okay, maybe a little bit. Oops. Or was this better? One of those ideas that's better in your head than in reality. Oh, I could pull it up tight. It kind of seems better if these two make contact. So let us, okay, what I'm going to do, try to even out my two ends. Tie a knot so this button stops flailing around. Now if I glue that, I could also, okay. Would there be any advantage whatsoever putting an eyelet? Or do I just glue this unit down? Short? Okay, let's bite the bullet and make a decision. Double this up so it's not going to undo. Glue this down and then trim those. So basically the button and maybe the center of this card. Yeah, I like that. And I don't need to trim a great deal off because it can just add to the stringiness of this, of that cheeseclothy type stuff underneath there. And in fact, if this thing misbehaves, I could put a bit of glue. Let me just do that. So that it controls kind of how that wants to go. Or not. It's resisting my attempts at controlling it. Come on. In the battle of the Hazel versus the button, or Hazel versus the string, I should be able to prevail. Okay, let me line these guys up again to show you. Pretend I didn't make a big mess with buttons. I think it's going to be hard to pick a favorite here, guys. Now, they all have kind of a slightly different feel, but hey, that's what makes the world go round. Maybe I should rat up this edge a bit. Fuzz it up. Yeah. And maybe fuzz this up a bit. Then it'll look more like it belongs here. Okay, and that is now stuck down. Count that. If you're keeping score at home, Hazel 1, string 0. I like it. I like it. I like it. And, you know, I can't overestimate the amount of satisfaction that comes from using some things that you think may be a lost cause, like these chipboard numbers. Yeah, I'm happy. Anyway, thanks guys for joining me, and I will see you again tomorrow. Don't know yet what we'll be doing, but hey, I've got a few hours to figure that out. So thanks, and yeah, bye-bye.